The howling wind outside matched the anguish in Aiden Reed's heart as his 12-year-old golden retriever, Midas, whimpered in pain on the leather passenger seat of his Range Rover. 3 hours outside of Manhattan, the snowstorm had forced him off the interstate and into this speck of a town that barely registered on his GPS. Now, at nearly midnight, he was frantically searching for anyone who could help his best friend. "Hang in there, buddy," Aiden murmured, reaching over to gently stroke Midas's golden fur while navigating the unfamiliar, snow-covered streets of Riverdale. The dog had been his only constant companion through building Reed Technologies into a multi-billion-dollar empire. When Midas had suddenly collapsed during their weekend trip to Aiden's newly purchased mountain retreat, panic had replaced the CEO's usually cool demeanor. The small roadside sign for Riverdale Veterinary Clinic appeared like a beacon through the swirling snow. Aiden pulled into the empty parking lot, his heart sinking as he noticed the darkened windows. Of course it would be closed at this hour. But desperation drove him to the door anyway. Midas cradled awkwardly in his arms. To his surprise, a dim light shone from a back room. He shifted Midas's weight and pounded on the door with his free hand. After what seemed like an eternity, a shadow appeared behind the frosted glass. "We're closed," called a female voice. "Please," Aiden shouted over the wind. "My dog needs help. I think it's his heart. I'll pay whatever you want." The door opened a crack, revealing a woman with concerned green eyes and auburn hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Dr. Samantha Dawson had been finishing paperwork when she heard the desperate knocking. "Bring him in quickly," she said, stepping back to make room. "The exam room is straight ahead." Aiden rushed inside, snow melting from his expensive wool coat onto the worn linoleum floor. The clinic was modest but immaculately clean, nothing like the sleek veterinary hospital in Manhattan where Midas usually received care. "Put him on the table, doctor," Dawson instructed, snapping into professional mode. She moved with practiced efficiency, checking Midas's vitals while asking Aiden questions about symptoms and medical history. "I'm Dr. Dawson, by the way," she said, her attention never leaving the dog as her hands moved with gentle precision. "Aiden Reed," he replied automatically, then immediately regretted giving his real name. The last thing he needed was someone recognizing him as the tech billionaire whose face occasionally graced business magazines. If she recognized his name, she didn't show it. "Well, Mr. Reed, Midas seems to be suffering from gastric dilatation volvulus, what we commonly call bloat. His stomach has twisted, which is cutting off blood flow and causing pain. It's life-threatening, but we've caught it relatively early." Aiden's face paled. "Can you help him?" "He needs emergency surgery," she said firmly. "Normally, I'd recommend taking him to the animal hospital in Bristol, but with this storm..." She glanced at the windows, where snow was accumulating rapidly. "The roads will be impassable soon if they aren't already. Can you do it here?" Aiden asked, his voice tense. In his world, solutions were always available for the right price. Dr. Dawson hesitated, then nodded. "I've performed this surgery before. It's not ideal in these conditions, but Midas doesn't have time to wait for the storm to pass." She met his eyes directly. "I'll need to call my assistant to help. You'll have to wait in the reception area." For the next 2 hours, Aiden paced the small waiting room, making occasional calls to reschedule meetings despite the spotty reception. The clinic's coffee machine produced a brew that would have horrified his personal chef. But he drank it anyway, cup after cup, as his mind filled with worst-case scenarios, when Dr. Dawson finally emerged. Her scrubs bore evidence of the difficult surgery, but her smile told him everything before she spoke. "He's stable. The surgery went well, but the next 24 hours are critical." Relief washed over Aiden like a physical force. "Thank you," he managed, suddenly aware of the exhaustion that had replaced his adrenaline. "I can't tell you how much this means to me. He's a special dog," she replied, her smile softening her professional demeanor. "You should get some rest. There's a motel about half a mile down the road, though I doubt they're taking new guests in this weather." Aiden glanced out the window at the blizzard conditions. "I don't suppose there's anywhere I could stay here. I won't leave him." Dr. Dawson seemed to debate internally before nodding. I have a cot in my office. I'll stay to monitor Mita's throughout the night, and you can use it if you don't mind the accommodations being less than 5-star. For the first time that night, Aiden smiled genuinely. I've slept in server rooms while building my company. A cot sounds luxurious. Your company? She asked, curiosity flickering in her tired eyes. Reed Technologies, he said, waiting for the usual recognition. To his surprise, she just nodded vaguely. Is that in New York? Aiden couldn't help but chuckle. It had been years since he'd met someone who didn't immediately place him. Reed Technologies was one of the largest tech firms in the country, with his face regularly appearing in business journals and tech conferences. Yes, among other places, he replied, oddly refreshed by her indifference to his status. Dr. Dawson showed him to a small office with a fold-out cot and a threadbare blanket. It's not much, she apologized. It's perfect, Aiden replied sincerely. Thank you for saving him, he's all I have, really. Something in his tone made her look at him more closely. No family waiting at home worried about you, just an assistant who's probably rescheduling my week as we speak, he admitted. Mita's has been my only constant companion for the past 12 years, Doctor. Dawson nodded thoughtfully. Well, you're both safe here tonight. Try to get some sleep, Mr. Reed. Aiden, he corrected. Please. Samantha, she offered in return. But most people call me Sam. In the morning, Aiden woke to sunlight streaming through the small office window. The storm had passed, leaving behind a pristine blanket of snow that transformed the modest clinic into something from a winter postcard. He found Samantha checking Mita's vitals, her hair now loose around her shoulders, revealing auburn waves that caught the morning light. How is he? Aiden asked, his voice rough with sleep. She turned, and for a moment, Aiden was struck by how the sunlight illuminated her features, the dusting of freckles across her nose, the warmth in her green eyes, the genuine smile that appeared when she saw him. He's doing remarkably well, she replied. His vitals are strong and he's responding to treatment better than I expected. He's a fighter. Like his doctor, Aiden observed. You must be exhausted, Samantha shrugged. I caught a few hours on the reception couch. I'm used to odd hours. Mita's lifted his head when he heard Aiden's voice, his tail giving a weak thump against the blanket. Aiden moved to his side, gently stroking his golden fur, emotion tightening his throat. The roads are being cleared, Samantha said, checking her phone. You should be able to get back to the city by afternoon. Aiden looked up, surprised by the disappointment that swept through him at the thought of leaving. Actually, I was heading to my cabin about 30 miles from here. I just bought it as a weekend retreat. Oh, Samantha raised an eyebrow. Where exactly? Lake Evergreen area. That's beautiful country, she said, genuine appreciation in her voice. I hike there sometimes. I wouldn't know yet, Aiden admitted. This was supposed to be my first visit. I've been too busy to see it since I bought it 3 months ago. Samantha studied him for a moment. Mita's will need to stay here for at least another day for observation. After that, he'll need rest and careful monitoring for about a week. Aiden nodded, mentally calculating. Could I bring him to the cabin? It's only 30 minutes from here. I can work remotely for a while. It would be better than trying to transport him all the way back to New York, she agreed. As long as you can bring him in for follow-up visits. I'll make it work, Aiden promised. He hesitated, then added, would it be possible for you to recommend someone who could check on him during the day while I handle some unavoidable video calls? Samantha seemed to consider this. Actually, I make house calls for some of my patients in remote areas. I could stop by tomorrow to check on him, assuming the roads are clear enough. The offer surprised him. You do that, for Mita's, she clarified with a small smile. He's a special patient. Over the next 2 days, Aiden set up a temporary office in his cabin while Mita's recovered at the clinic. He found himself looking forward to his visits with Sam more than he cared to admit. There was something refreshing about her straightforward manner and obvious passion for her work. When Mita's was finally released, Sam helped Aiden settle him into the cabin, a rustic but luxurious retreat overlooking the frozen lake. Despite its high-end finishes and top-of-the-line appliances, it still felt impersonal, a showpiece rather than a home. "This place is beautiful," Sam commented, looking out over the snow-covered landscape, "but it doesn't look lived in." "It's not really," Aiden admitted, setting up Mitas's bed near the stone fireplace. "This is my first time here. My real estate agent handled everything." Sam ran her hand along a perfectly styled bookshelf filled with leather-bound classics that Aiden suspected had been placed there by an interior designer. "Do you ever take time to just be?" The question caught him off guard. "What do you mean?" "No agenda, no meetings, no empire building," she explained, turning to face him. "Just existing in a space because it brings you joy." Aiden found himself unable to remember the last time he'd done anything without purpose or agenda. Even buying this cabin had been a calculated decision, a place to entertain investors who appreciated outdoor activities, a tax write-off, an investment in an up-and-coming vacation area. "I'm working on it," he finally answered, surprising himself with his honesty. Sam's visit stretched from a quick medical check to an afternoon conversation by the fire. She told him about growing up in Riverdale, about veterinary school, about returning to her hometown when the previous vet retired because she believed small towns deserved quality care as much as cities did. In turn, Aiden found himself sharing stories he rarely told about growing up with a single mother who worked 3 jobs, about coding his first program at 13, about the lonely reality behind his success. "You should come into town tomorrow," Sam suggested as she prepared to leave. "There's a winter festival happening. It might give you a better feel for the area than staying isolated out here." "Is that your professional recommendation, Doctor?" Aiden asked with a smile. "Absolutely. Fresh air and small-town charm, very medicinal," she replied with mock seriousness. Mitas would benefit from a short, gentle walk too. The next day, Aiden found himself wandering through Riverdale's winter festival with Mitas on a short leash. The town square had been transformed with twinkling lights, vendor booths, and locals bundled against the cold. Children built snowmen while their parents sipped hot chocolate, and somewhere a band played cheerful holiday tunes. It was worlds away from the Manhattan charity galas and networking events that usually filled Aiden's social calendar. Here, no one cared about his net worth or his company's latest acquisition. He spotted Samantha at a booth selling homemade preserves, deep in conversation with an elderly woman. She wore a red knit hat pulled over her auburn hair, her cheeks flushed from the cold. When she caught sight of him, her face lit up with genuine pleasure. "You came," she exclaimed, making her way to him, "and you brought my favorite patient." Mitas's tail wagged enthusiastically at the sight of her, belying his recent surgery. "He insisted," Aiden replied. "I think he has a crush on his doctor." "Smart dog," commented the elderly woman who had followed Sam. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your handsome friend, Sammy?" Sam rolled her eyes good-naturedly. "Aiden, this is Martha Wilson, town gossip and maker of the best apple butter in 3 counties. Martha, this is Aiden Reed, new cabin owner and Mitas's human." "Pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Wilson," Aiden said, extending his hand. Martha ignored his hand and pulled him into a hug instead. "Any friend of our Sam's is family here. Have you tried the hot cider yet? Joe Miller spikes it with his homemade whiskey after 4 o'clock. "I was just about to show him around," Sam interjected, shooting Martha a warning look that made the older woman chuckle knowingly. "Don't mind me," Martha said with a wink. "You young people enjoy the festival." As they walked away, Aiden leaned closer to Sam. "I think she's under the impression that we're—" He trailed off, suddenly aware of how close they were walking. "Dating," Sam supplied with a laugh. "Welcome to small-town life. Everyone is invested in everyone else's business, especially mine since I'm one of the few unmarried women over 30. "Is that why you stay? For the charming nosiness?" Sam's expression grew more serious. "I stay because this place needs me. These people need me. In New York, I'd be just another veterinarian. Here, I make a difference every day." Aiden found himself studying her profile as she spoke, struck by the quiet confidence in her voice. In his world, success was measured in stock prices and market share. Samantha measured it in wagging tails and grateful neighbors. The afternoon turned into evening as Sam introduced him to what seemed like half the town. They shared a meal at the local diner, where the owner refused to let Aiden pay, insisting it was on the house for Sam's friend. As they walked back to where Aiden had parked, snow began to fall gently around them. Midas pranced ahead, clearly feeling better while they fell into step beside each other. "Thank you for this," Aiden said quietly. "I can't remember the last time I spent a day just experiencing life." "You should try it more often," Sam suggested, her breath visible in the cold air. "There's a whole world outside boardrooms and business meetings. Is that an invitation?" The words slipped out before he could stop them. Sam looked up at him, snowflakes catching in her eyelashes. "Maybe it is." Over the next 2 weeks, Aiden extended his stay at the cabin, citing Midas's recovery and some vague, remote work initiatives to his executive team. In reality, he found himself drawn to the simple rhythm of small-town life, and to Sam, they fell into an easy pattern. Mornings, Aiden would work from the cabin while Sam handled her clinic duties. Afternoons often found them together hiking gentle trails as Midas regained his strength, exploring local shops, or simply talking by the fire at the cabin. Aiden learned that Sam volunteered at the local animal shelter, taught veterinary science at the high school once a month, and hadn't taken a vacation in 3 years, because finding a replacement vet for Riverdale was nearly impossible. He discovered she sang off-key to country music while driving, preferred paperback books because she could fold the corners, and kept chocolate hidden in every room of her house for emergencies. In turn, Sam learned that beneath Aiden's billionaire CEO exterior was a man who coded for fun when he couldn't sleep, who hadn't spoken to his father in 15 years, and who secretly watched baking shows despite having no cooking skills whatsoever. One evening, as they prepared dinner together in the cabin's kitchen, Sam's phone rang with an emergency call. A local farmer's horse was in distress. Without hesitation, Aiden offered to accompany her. "You don't have to," Sam protested, already gathering her emergency kit. "It'll be messy, cold work." "I want to help," Aiden insisted, already pulling on his coat, "if you'll let me." Hours later, covered in mud and exhausted from helping deliver a breech foal, Aiden watched as Sam gently checked the newborn horse's vitals. Her hair had escaped its ponytail, her clothes were filthy, and there were dark circles under her eyes. Aiden had never seen anyone more beautiful. "You're staring," she noted without looking up. "You're amazing," he replied simply. Sam finally glanced up, a vulnerability in her eyes he hadn't seen before. Most men in suits worth billions don't volunteer to deliver foals in freezing barns at midnight. "I'm not most men," Aiden said, stepping closer. "No," she agreed softly, "you're definitely not." The moment was interrupted by the farmer bringing them hot coffee, but something had shifted between them. The careful boundary between friendship and something more had begun to blur. Back at the cabin, as they sat before the fire warming up, Aiden found himself at a crossroads. His extended working vacation couldn't last forever. Reed Technologies needed its CEO back in New York, and a dozen projects awaited his attention. "You're thinking too loudly," Sam observed, curled up on the sofa with Midas's head in her lap. "I have to go back soon," Aiden admitted. "The board is getting restless." "I know," she said simply. "This was always temporary." "What if it wasn't?" The words surprised even him. Sam's hand stilled in Midas's fur. "What do you mean?" "I don't know exactly," Aiden confessed. "I just know that the thought of going back to my life in New York without this feels wrong somehow, this being you," he said, meeting her eyes directly. "Us, the way I feel when I'm with you." Sam's expression softened. "Aiden, our worlds couldn't be more different. You run a global technology empire. I treat farm animals and family pets in a town most people have never heard of. And I've been happier in these 2 weeks than in the past 5 years, he countered. Doesn't that count for something? Of course it does. But happiness built on vacation isn't always sustainable in real life. Aiden moved to sit beside her on the sofa. Then let me prove it is. Come to New York with me for a weekend. See my world the way I've seen yours. Sam hesitated, then nodded slowly. Okay. But only if you can find someone to cover the clinic. My patients come first. It took Aiden exactly 3 phone calls to arrange for a respected veterinarian from a nearby town to cover Sam's clinic for the weekend. His assistant in New York, meanwhile, nearly fainted when he instructed her to clear his schedule for a personal tour of the city. When Sam arrived at his penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, Aiden watched her take in the sleek, modern space with its floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist decor. "It's very you," she commented diplomatically. Aiden laughed. "You mean it's cold and impersonal?" Sam grinned. "I was trying to be polite, but yes, it feels more like a magazine spread than a home." "That's because it isn't a home," Aiden admitted. "It's just where I sleep between meetings." Over the weekend, Aiden showed Sam his version of New York, not the tourist attractions, but the places that mattered to him. The small coding academy he'd founded in his old neighborhood to give underprivileged kids the opportunities he'd fought for. The dog park where he took Mitas on Sunday mornings. The hole-in-the-wall Chinese restaurant that had fed him when he was a broke college student coding his first successful app. He also took her to a charity gala where board members and investors circled like sharks, sizing up Sam and her relationship to the elusive CEO. To his delight, Sam handled them with the same straightforward charm she used on difficult pet owners, leaving several tech moguls both impressed and slightly bewildered. "You're a natural," Aiden commented as they swayed on the dance floor, Sam looking stunning in a borrowed emerald gown that matched her eyes. "Not really," she admitted. "I'm just treating them like nervous Great Danes. Maintain eye contact, speak calmly, and don't show fear." Aiden laughed louder than he had in years, drawing curious glances from nearby dancers. "That might be the most accurate description of my board I've ever heard." Later that night, as they walked hand in hand through Central Park, snow beginning to fall around them much like it had that night in Riverdale, Aiden stopped near the lake. "What do you think? Could you see yourself here?" he asked, his heart pounding unnaturally fast for a man who regularly made billion-dollar decisions without breaking a sweat. Sam looked around thoughtfully before meeting his gaze. "I think I could see myself anywhere, as long as you were there." The kiss that followed felt inevitable, the natural conclusion to a story that had begun with a desperate knock on a clinic door in the middle of a snowstorm. But reality intruded the next morning, when Sam received an urgent call from her assistant. An outbreak of a mysterious illness was affecting dogs in Riverdale, and her temporary replacement was overwhelmed. "I have to go back," she said, already packing her overnight bag. "They need me." "I understand," Aiden replied, and he genuinely did. It was that sense of responsibility, that commitment to helping others, that had drawn him to her in the first place. "Come with me," Sam suggested suddenly. "Your company survived 3 weeks without you physically present. Surely it can handle another few days." Aiden hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Let me grab my laptop." Back in Riverdale, they worked side by side for 3 days straight, diagnosing and treating the canine influenza outbreak that had swept through the town. Aiden surprised both himself and Sam by proving adept at organizing the clinic's response, creating a digital tracking system for affected animals, coordinating volunteer schedules, and even administering basic treatments under Sam's supervision. On the 3rd night, exhausted but satisfied as the outbreak began to subside, they collapsed onto Sam's worn sofa in her small cottage near the clinic. "We make a good team," Aiden observed, his arm around her shoulders as she leaned against him. "We do," Sam agreed, "but where does that leave us?" "Your life is in New York, mine is here." Aiden had been pondering this very question for days. What if it didn't have to be either slash or? Sam raised an eyebrow. "Meaning, I've been thinking about restructuring Reed Technologies for a while now," Aiden explained. "Creating a more distributed leadership model. My COO has been practically running day-to-day operations anyway." "You'd give up being CEO?" Sam asked, surprised. "Not entirely, but I could step back from the operational role to a more strategic position. One that wouldn't require my physical presence in New York 5 days a week." He took her hand. And as it happens, I recently acquired a lovely cabin in the Evergreen Lake area that could use some living in. Aiden, Sam said cautiously, I don't want you to append your entire life for me. I'm not, he assured her. I'm reshaping it into something better, something more balanced, something with purpose beyond the next acquisition or product launch. He met her eyes, something with love at its center. Sam's breath caught. Love. Yes, love, Aiden confirmed, his voice steady despite his racing heart. I love you, Samantha Dawson, and I'm not asking you to leave Riverdale or give up your practice. I'm asking if there's room in your life for a tech billionaire who's learning to slow down and a golden retriever who's already completely devoted to you. Tears welled in Sam's eyes. There's always been room. I was just afraid to hope you'd want to fill it. 6 months later, Aiden sat on the porch of their expanded lake house, Mita's lounging at his feet while he reviewed quarterly reports on his tablet. Inside, Sam was wrapping up a video consultation with a concerned pet owner. They had converted part of the house into a satellite clinic, where Sam could handle minor cases and consultations 3 days a week, while maintaining her main practice in town. Reed Technologies was thriving under its new management structure, with Aiden focusing on vision and strategy while traveling to New York twice monthly for in-person meetings. The company had recently launched a non-profit initiative developing veterinary technology for underserved rural areas, a project that combined both their passions. Penny for your thoughts, Sam said, emerging from the house to join him on the porch swing. Just thinking about how a midnight emergency and a snowstorm changed everything, Aiden replied, setting aside his tablet to pull her close. For the better, I hope, she teased, though he could hear the genuine question beneath. Beyond anything I could have imagined, he assured her. Though there is one thing that would make it perfect. Oh, Sam raised an eyebrow as Aiden reached into his pocket. Dr. Samantha Dawson, he said, revealing a simple but elegant diamond ring, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Not because you need me or I need you, but because together we're better than we ever could be apart. Mitas chose that moment to raise his head and give an approving woof, making them both laugh through happy tears. Yes, Sam said, pulling Aiden into a kiss that tasted of promise and forever. After all, who am I to argue with such a persuasive patient advocate? As the sun set over the lake, casting golden light across the water, Aiden reflected on the strange, wonderful journey that had brought him here. He had come to this small town desperate to save his dog, never expecting the small town vet would save him instead, not just his beloved companion, but his heart, his perspective, and ultimately his life.